What if I told you that the greatest power you will ever access is not outside you, but already placed within you by God? Let me ask you something that might shake you awake. If you truly believed that the same divine force that created the universe was guiding your steps, would you still live small? Would you still hesitate, procrastinate, doubt, and play safe with your life? Here's the truth most people avoid. God does not reward intentions. God responds to alignment, action, and discipline. Faith without action is empty, and potential without discipline is wasted. You were not created to merely survive, to drift through days, reacting to circumstances. You were created to lead, to rise, to become a force for good in this world. But that power only activates when belief turns into behavior. In this message, you're going to discover why discipline is not just a personal habit, but a spiritual responsibility. You'll understand why chaos enters your life when standards are weak, and why clarity arrives the moment you commit fully. You'll learn how discipline becomes the language through which God can trust you with more strength, more impact, more responsibility. And by the end, you won't just feel inspired, you'll feel activated. This is not a feel-good talk. This is a wake-up call, because God doesn't need you perfect. He needs you committed. He needs you disciplined enough to show up when it's hard, faithful enough to act when it's uncomfortable, and strong enough to obey the calling placed on your life. If you stay until the end, you won't just hear motivation. You'll gain clarity on why your next level has been waiting on one decision: to live with discipline as devotion. Motivation lies. Discipline delivers. Let that land, because most people are living their lives chasing a feeling instead of building a system. They wake up waiting to feel inspired, waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel ready. And when that feeling doesn't show up, they don't show up either. Motivation is emotional. It's inconsistent. It's driven by mood, energy, environment. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. Discipline shows up whether you're tired or energized, whether you're scared or confident, whether the conditions are perfect or painful. Motivation whispers, do it when it feels good. Discipline commands, do it because it must be done. And the people who win at life understand this at a cellular level. They don't build their future on emotions. They build it on standards. Here's the brutal truth most people don't want to hear. Motivation has never changed a life long term. It may start something, but it never finishes it. You've been motivated before. You've watched the videos, felt the fire, promised yourself this time would be different. And then what happened? Life happened, stress happened, boredom happened, and motivation disappeared. Discipline is what stays when the excitement dies. Discipline is what carries you through the boring days, the lonely days, the days when no one is clapping for you. Discipline is the bridge between knowing and doing. Motivation feels powerful, but it's unreliable. Discipline feels uncomfortable, but it's unstoppable. Motivation asks, what do I feel like doing today? Discipline asks, who do I decide to be today? That's a completely different question. One is reactive, the other is commanding, and your entire life shifts when you stop asking your emotions for permission. The moment you decide that your feelings no longer control your actions, you step into personal power. And this connects directly to the second truth most people avoid. You don't lack time, you lack standards. Everyone gets the same 24 hours. The difference is not time management. The difference is self-management. The difference is what you tolerate from yourself. You say you don't have time, but somehow you have time to scroll, to procrastinate, to overthink, to distract yourself. Time isn't missing. Clarity is missing. Stand again without apology. Most people underestimate how much time they waste because they've normalized distraction. They check their phone without thinking. They start tasks without finishing them. They live in reaction mode instead of intention mode. Discipline is intentional living. Discipline is deciding ahead of time how you use your energy, your focus, your hours. You don't drift into excellence, you design it. Here's where it gets uncomfortable but necessary. Every excuse you make is a standard you accept. Every time you say later, tomorrow, or when I feel like it, you're training your brain to obey weakness. And the brain learns fast. It learns whatever you repeatedly teach it. If you repeatedly quit, you become a quitter. If you repeatedly follow through, you become disciplined. Identity is not something you think about. It's something you prove to yourself daily. Discipline delivers results because it builds identity. When you do what you said you would do, especially when it's hard, you create self-trust. And self-trust is confidence, not fake confidence, real confidence, the kind that doesn't shake when things go wrong. Motivation tries to pump you up from the outside. Discipline builds you from the inside. People think discipline is about restriction. It's not. Discipline is about freedom. Freedom from chaos, freedom from regret, freedom from the constant stress of unfinished goals. When you're disciplined, you don't carry mental clutter. You don't waste energy deciding. You just execute. That's freedom. Look at the areas where you feel stuck: your body, your money, your skills, your relationships. In every one of those areas, the gap between where you are and where you want to be is filled with disciplined actions you've been avoiding. Not big, dramatic actions. Small, boring, consistent ones. Discipline doesn't shout, it whispers. It shows up quietly every day and compounds over time. And time is either working for you or against you. There is no neutral. If you lack discipline, time amplifies your weaknesses. If you have discipline, time multiplies your strengths. That's why standards matter so much. Standards determine how you use time. Standards determine whether today moves you forward or keeps you stuck. High standards are not about being perfect. They're about being non-negotiable on what matters. You don't need more hours. You need fewer excuses. You don't need better circumstances. You need better rules for yourself. Rules like, I do the work before I consume entertainment. I finish what I start. I keep promises to myself. I don't let emotions decide my actions. Motivation will tell you stories. Discipline tells you the truth. Motivation says you deserve a break. Discipline says you deserve the results you're avoiding. Motivation says it's okay to skip today. Discipline says today is exactly why this matters. And every time you choose discipline, you strengthen a muscle that most people never build. This is not about being extreme. It's about being exact. Exact with your time, exact with your focus, exact with your standards. Because sloppy standards create sloppy lives. Clear standards create powerful lives. If you want to know where your future is going, look at your daily discipline. Look at how you start your mornings. Look at how you handle resistance. Look at what you do when no one is watching. Motivation might get you started, but discipline decides how far you go. And the moment you stop saying, I don't have time, and start saying, this matters, everything changes. Because now you're in control. Now you're choosing. Now you're operating from standards, not moods. And that is where real power lives. Every excuse is a vote against your future. That's not motivational talk, that's mathematics. Every time you justify not doing the work, you are casting a ballot for the life you don't want. Excuses don't disappear into the air. They accumulate, they compound, they shape identity. You don't wake up one day unsuccessful by accident. You build that result excuse by excuse, decision by decision, moment by moment. And most people never see it happening because excuses feel reasonable in the moment. They sound logical. They feel justified. But logic that protects comfort is still logic that kills progress. Here's the danger of excuses. They feel harmless. One skipped workout, one delayed call, one day of, I'll do it tomorrow. But the brain doesn't record the size of the excuse. It records the pattern. It learns that discomfort is optional and quitting is acceptable. And once that pattern is installed, it doesn't just affect one area of your life. It spreads. You start excusing yourself in your health, your work, your relationships, your standards. What started as a small excuse becomes a permanent identity. Every excuse you make is you telling yourself a story about who you are. And stories become beliefs. Beliefs become behaviors. Behaviors become results. You don't need to be brutally honest with the world. You need to be brutally honest with yourself because your future is listening. Your future self is watching every choice you make today and saying, is this who we are? And every excuse answers that question. People think they need more discipline, but what they really need is fewer lies. Lies like, I work better under pressure. Lies like, now isn't the right time. Lies like, I'll start when I feel confident. Confidence doesn't come first. Commitment does. And excuses are nothing more than delayed decisions dressed up as intelligence. If you want to change your life, stop asking, is this understandable? And start asking, is this useful? Because most excuses are understandable. You're tired. You're busy. You're overwhelmed. That's human. But discipline isn't about being human. It's about being intentional. And intention requires ownership. No blaming the past. No blaming circumstances. No blaming other people. Ownership is the moment excuses die. And here's the part that hits hardest. Excuses steal time quietly. Not all at once. They leak it. You don't feel the loss until years later when you look back and wonder where your potential went. Potential doesn't disappear. It gets betrayed. Slowly, politely, comfortably. This is where identity is built. And this is where keynote number 4 lives. Your identity is built in boring moments, not in breakthroughs, not in highlight reels, not in the days when you feel unstoppable. Identity is forged when nothing exciting is happening, when the work is repetitive, when the progress is invisible, when no one is watching and no one is praising you. People think identity is something you declare. It's not. It's something you demonstrate when motivation is gone, when it's just you and the task, when quitting would be easy and continuing would be inconvenient. Those moments don't look important, but they are everything because those moments answer the question, who are you really? Greatness is not dramatic. It's dull. It's showing up again to do the same thing you did yesterday, without applause, without novelty, without certainty. Most people quit there, not because they can't do the work, but because the work doesn't excite them anymore. And boredom becomes the new excuse. But boredom is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that discipline is required. The mind craves novelty. Discipline thrives on consistency. That's why most people never change. They mistake excitement for progress. They confuse movement with momentum. Identity is built when you do the work, even though it feels ordinary, especially when it feels ordinary. Because ordinary actions done consistently create extraordinary outcomes. Think about it. No one becomes strong on the day they feel like lifting weights. They become strong on the days they don't feel like it and do it anyway. No one becomes skilled by practicing when it's fun. They become skilled by practicing when it's tedious. No one becomes confident by waiting for certainty. They become confident by acting without it. Identity is earned, not imagined. And boring moments are where excuses try to sneak back in. That's when the voice says, this doesn't matter. That's when the mind says, skipping today won't change anything, but that voice is lying because skipping today doesn't just affect today, it affects who you believe yourself to be tomorrow. Every time you push through boredom, you send a message to your nervous system, I am reliable, and reliability is power. Reliability is trust. Reliability is discipline. You don't rise to your goals, you sink to your identity, and identity is shaped when the work feels dull, slow, and repetitive. People want transformation without repetition. They want change without routine. But routine is where identity lives. Routine is where excuses are exposed. Routine is where you either reinforce weakness or build strength. And the mind will always try to escape routine because routine removes drama. It removes emotion. It leaves only choice. That's why excuses feel louder in boring moments, because there's no adrenaline to drown them out. There's no urgency, no deadline pressure. Just you deciding whether you honor your word or betray it. That decision doesn't feel heroic, but it is. The most dangerous belief you can have is, I'll be disciplined when it matters. It always matters, especially when it feels like it doesn't, because the moments you think don't count are the moments that count the most. They are the reps. They are the votes. They are the proof. If you want to know who you are becoming, don't look at your goals. Look at what you do when you're tired, bored, and unmotivated. Look at what you tolerate in those moments. Look at the excuses you allow, because that's the real curriculum. That's the real training ground. Excuses are loud in boring moments because boring moments demand maturity. They demand that you act without emotional payoff. And most people aren't trained for that. They've been trained to react, not commit, to feel, not decide. But discipline is deciding once and executing daily. Identity doesn't change when life is intense. It changes when life is quiet, when there's space to quit, when no one would blame you, when stopping would be easy and continuing would be invisible. That's where the line is drawn. That's where futures separate. And the more often you choose action over excuse in those moments, the quieter excuses become. They don't disappear overnight, but they lose authority. They lose credibility because you've proven they don't run your life anymore. You do. This is how people become unstoppable, not by intensity, by integrity with themselves, by doing the boring work well, by refusing to cast votes against their future, by understanding that every small decision is training something much bigger than the task itself. It's training the person you are becoming, one ordinary, uncelebrated moment at a time. Discipline is self-respect in motion. It's not about being harsh with yourself. It's about honoring who you say you want to become. Every time you follow through, you're sending a clear signal to your nervous system, I matter, my word matters. And every time you don't, you weaken that signal. Self-respect is not something you talk about or demand from others. It's something you demonstrate through consistent behavior. Discipline is the visible proof of internal respect. Most people misunderstand self-respect. They think it's confidence or assertiveness or how others treat you. But real self-respect shows up when no one is watching. It shows up when the alarm goes off and you want to stay in bed. It shows up when the work feels tedious and the reward feels far away. It shows up when comfort is tempting and discipline feels inconvenient. Those moments reveal how much you actually value yourself. If you truly respect yourself, you don't abandon yourself. You don't repeatedly break promises to yourself and expect confidence to magically appear. Confidence is built through integrity with your own standards. Discipline is not restriction, it's alignment. It's choosing actions that match the future you say you want. And when your actions align with your vision, self-respect grows automatically. The opposite is also true. Every time you choose comfort over commitment, you chip away at trust with yourself. And once self-trust erodes, everything gets harder. You hesitate more, you doubt more, you look outside yourself for validation because you don't believe your own word anymore. That's not a motivation problem, that's a discipline problem, because discipline repairs self-trust faster than any affirmation ever could. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it is expensive. Comfort charges interest. The more you lean on it, the weaker you feel. Comfort tells you that you deserve rest before effort, reward before work, certainty before action. Discipline tells you the truth, effort comes first. And that truth builds pride, real pride, the kind that doesn't need approval. Which brings us to the enemy of greatness, comfort. Comfort is the enemy of growth because it makes staying the same feel safe. It whispers that you've done enough, that pushing harder is unnecessary, that you can always start tomorrow. Comfort is seductive because it never looks dangerous. It looks reasonable, but reasonable lives don't become remarkable. Comfort is not evil, but it must be earned. When comfort becomes a lifestyle instead of a recovery tool, ambition dies quietly. You don't notice it at first. You just lower your standards a little. You justify shortcuts. You normalize mediocrity. And over time, you forget what it feels like to stretch, to strain, to demand more from yourself. Greatness requires friction. Growth requires resistance. Muscles grow by being challenged. Character grows the same way. Discipline puts you in controlled discomfort on purpose so life doesn't crush you. Offer an exit. Discipline closes the door. Comfort asks, what feels good right now? Discipline asks, what will I be proud of later? And pride lasts longer than pleasure. Pleasure fades. Pride compounds. Self-respect grows when you do hard things willingly. Not because you have to, but because you choose to. That choice changes how you carry yourself. You walk differently. You speak differently. You think differently because you know you don't run from challenge anymore. You meet it. And the irony is this. Discipline actually creates more comfort in the long run. A disciplined body experiences less pain. A disciplined mind experiences less chaos. A disciplined life has fewer emergencies. Comfort now creates chaos later. Discipline now creates peace later. The people you admire most are not the most comfortable people. They are the most disciplined ones. They have standards that don't bend when emotions fluctuate. They don't need to feel ready. They act, and readiness follows. They don't chase ease. They chase alignment. Every time you choose discipline, you reinforce self-respect. Every time you resist comfort, you strengthen character. And over time, those choices stop feeling heavy. They become identity. You don't say, I'm trying to be disciplined. You say, this is who I am. And once discipline becomes identity, comfort no longer controls you. It becomes a choice, not a default. Growth becomes normal. Effort becomes familiar. And self-respect becomes unshakable because it's been earned through action, not words. You become what you repeatedly do. No exceptions, not what you plan, not what you promise, not what you think about at night. Repetition is identity in motion. Every habit is a vote. Every routine is training. The brain doesn't care about your intentions. It responds to patterns. Do something once, it's an event. Do it repeatedly, it becomes who you are. That's why small actions matter more than big talk. Repetition hardwires belief, confidence, and behavior until effort disappears and identity takes over. Emotions are loud. Discipline is louder. Emotions shout in the moment, telling you what feels good, what feels safe, what feels easy. Discipline doesn't argue. It executes. When emotions scream quit, discipline whispers continue. Over time, that whisper becomes command, and emotions stop running the show because action has already decided. The life you want demands a stronger you, not a more informed you, not a more inspired you, but a more disciplined you. Every next level requires a new standard, and that standard demands effort you haven't normalized yet. Wanting more without becoming more creates frustration. Growth is not optional if the vision stays the same. Strength is built by doing what the current version of you resists until resistance becomes routine. Win the day, or the day wins you. Each day is a battleground of small decisions that decide momentum. You don't lose life all at once. You lose it minute by minute. When you win the morning, you win the direction. When you drift, the day decides for you. Daily wins build control, and control builds destiny. Here's the final truth to carry with you. Discipline is not about control. It's about trust. When you live with discipline, you are telling God, I can be trusted with what you place in my hands. Your habits are your daily prayers. Your actions are your real beliefs. And every disciplined step forward is proof that you are ready for more. If something stirred inside you today, don't ignore it. Awareness without action fades fast. Take one disciplined step today, just one, and let it be an act of faith. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. The future you are praying for is built by the standards you choose right now. Thank you for spending this time with Alpha Motivation. If this message gave you clarity, strength, or perspective, support the channel by liking the video, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing so you don't miss what's coming next. Another powerful motivational speech is already on the way, designed to sharpen your focus, strengthen your discipline, and awaken the leader within you. Stay committed, stay disciplined, and remember, when you align your actions with your faith, nothing is impossible.